Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to the Wise Way to Yoga podcast. In this episode, Cecile and I discuss how we can strengthen our body without the unnecessary excess tension that can build up when we challenge ourselves on the mat, and how we can still challenge ourselves without overdoing and potentially getting hurt. For those of you who don't know us, Cecile Raynor is an Alexander Technique teacher, certified by the American Society of Teachers of the Alexander Technique. Cecile has been practicing in the Boston area for over 20 years. She's also trained as a Thai yoga therapist and is the author of the book, The Wise Way to Yoga, our main inspiration for this podcast. And I, Mona Kelly, I'm a yoga teacher certified in Vinyasa, Kundalini and Restorative Yoga. I'm also a student of Cecile, which means that my yoga classes, taught exclusively online, integrate the Alexander Technique principles for a fun and safe yoga practice. I also practice Vedic astrology, one of the most profound self-knowledge tools, in my humble opinion. Let's get started. Hello, Cecile. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Mona.
Great. So today, I would like to bring up an important topic, and this topic is really about challenging yourself. Because the way I see it is there are two main reasons people go to yoga, practice yoga. The first one is they want to challenge themselves, and they also want to get more flexible. They want to stretch themselves. So how can you challenge your stretch edge or your strength edge for some people who are more into getting stronger without overdoing it and potentially injuring yourself?
Well, that's a very good question because I think we are in a society where people want to challenge themselves and we tend to think that the more the better. But the truth is, when it comes to yoga and fitness in general, more is not necessarily better. But it doesn't mean we can't challenge ourselves. The only thing is that we have to challenge ourselves once we know how to activate our whole body intelligence. So what it means is that it gives us a barometer, if you could say, of where to stop, a safe barometer that comes from your whole body intelligence, instead of relying just on the sensation of feeling good or not feeling good, feeling pain or not feeling pain.
Yeah, and we talked about this in the previous episodes.
That's the core of what I teach, which is, I think, what's missing in the fitness world, modern fitness and modern yoga, which there's a confusion about listening to your body sensation, and as long as it doesn't hurt, thinking you're safe. There is a confusion in listening to our sensation that they do come from our body, the physical part of our body.
Mm-hmm.
And we think that if we're not hurting, we're safe. Although most of us have experience going to a yoga class and listening to that kind of guidance, and the next day we're sore. And of course, trainers and teachers will tell us, well, that's normal, that's good, and we assume it is. But the truth is, it's just a sign that you've gone beyond what was acceptable for your whole body intelligence. And people do that because they don't know where to stop. So
how can they know where to stop?
So when you learn how to activate your whole body intelligence, which in fact has to do with always keeping, that's a tip I could give the listeners, as long as you still have room to release even a little bit through your whole body, you're still in the ballpark of working with your whole body intelligence. Okay. But if there's no more room to release, even as you strengthen, or you're stretching to the point that all you're aware of is that stretch, you're not connected to the rest of your body, then you're working against your whole body intelligence. And that's when the next day you're going to feel sore, and sometimes it builds up, and then eventually you get injured and you wonder where it came from, or you think it's the activity you just did, when in fact you've been prepping for that. And that's what I call developing a catastrophe ready to happen.
Okay. But when you also mentioned releasing, you're referring to the joints most of the time.
Correct. So that's so when one learns how to release in your joints, which is very different from stretching your joint, by the way, the muscles between the joints automatically will want to soften into length. And
which is what you want.
This is what you want.
Yeah.
So even if you're strengthening, yesterday I was teaching a class. We were doing some stretches, but I call them, I tell them to release into their stretch and to not let themselves focus on the point of stretch, but rather to let the softening into the stretch expand to both ends of their body. So this way, they're less likely to get more stretching in one part, but creating compressing in another, or getting so much stretch on one side that they're going beyond what's good for their whole body. That's another way to say it. So whether you're trying to strengthen or to stretch, when you step out of your own way, when you don't think that your mind is the only one in control here, because your mind doesn't know as much as your whole body intelligence. So you need to surrender to your whole body intelligence on some level. Otherwise, that's how we get in trouble.
So you mentioned something really interesting to me recently. You mentioned that the guidance of your physical body is different than the intelligence of it.
Yes. So what's confusing is that even the intelligence of your whole body is going to talk to you through physical sensation. Okay. So that's why, it could be confusing. But the difference is that when you only listen to the feel good or not, or feel pain or not, sensations, usually they are focused on a body part.
Correct.
But when you actually, to activate your whole body intelligence and its guidance, you need to have an awareness of the whole, and you have to be able to release into your support, whether you're strengthening or stretching. So when you do that, suddenly you get a different kind of response from your body. You might get a response that there's a part of your body you're not paying attention to that needs to release. But you didn't know that because you're focused on this one part, you're stretching or strengthening. So to access your whole body intelligence, you have to be able to step out of your own way.
Yes. And actually maybe we could talk about the concept of inhibition that the Alexander technique has developed. In my personal experience, even when I sit on a regular day like now, or on the yoga mat, when I practice that inhibition, I will notice some tension that I had not noticed before. And so I'm bringing that up because you mentioned something about of that effect. So could you say a few words on the concept of inhibition? Because I think that will help people understand how to release into their support.
So inhibition is more, it goes beyond releasing, in the sense that, even though I talk a lot about that because I'm trying to use a vocabulary that people may understand, but the inhibition is more about making a mind decision that, let's say, you're not going to tense anywhere. So when you make that conscious decision, your whole body intelligence is going to release any place where you're already tensing too much. And that's when sometimes you have no clue that you're tensing someplace, and it reveals that to you. So I had an experience a long time ago where I was running on the beach, and not that I was in the habit of doing that, but I just felt like doing that. And at some point I had that thought, I choose not to tense anywhere. And suddenly I felt my shoulder blade release big time. Yeah. I had never had any problem with my shoulder blade. And I certainly didn't feel like there was excess tension there. But obviously, maybe I was leaning too much in my running or whatever. And when my shoulder blade released, my whole body realigned itself and was more upright. So that was the doing of my whole body intelligence. So yes, there's releasing involved, but it's done by your whole body intelligence, not by you trying to soften your muscle. So that's, does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. I use that like I like to call it my little magic sentence.
Yeah.
Where I say I choose not to tighten anywhere, whether, like I said, whether I'm doing any daily activities
or chair pose
or
plank.
if I'm doing exactly chair pose or plank in a regular, I mean, in a yoga practice. And I have to say, when I go to yoga classes, I do hear a lot of things like, don't listen to your mind telling you can't do it, and be comfortable with the uncomfortable, or find your edge. And sometimes it's actually quite challenging to not listen to those instructions and just go back to this, I choose not to hold anywhere, or I choose not to tense anywhere. So I don't know if you have anything to say about.
And I want, before I answer the question about the be comfortable with the uncomfortable, I want to address the what we talked about, the tensing, because for some people, for the listeners, they may be confused. They may be like, how can you not tense when you're doing a plank?
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah.
So it's because there has been that misconception that to strengthen, you need to tense, which is not, that is the mind telling the body, okay, let's. But the truth is, if you're in a plank or in a chair pose or whatever, and even when you do it appropriately and in line with your whole body intelligence, believe me, you're going to feel that your body is working, even if you choose not to tense, because the choosing not to tense only addresses the excess tension, which is not necessary for your whole body to strengthen as a whole. So that I wanted to
no, that's good. So tension is not
tensing,
the same
doesn't
thing
mean strengthening.
Strengthening,
strengthening is not a willpower thing. It's working with your whole body intelligence and putting your body in a situation that it will have to step up to the plate. So as far as the being comfortable with the uncomfortable, that is also something that's very annoying to me, because it's so misunderstood. So I think that in meditation and in the meditative part of yoga, sometimes we hear that, but it doesn't refer to creating trouble for your body and then be comfortable with it. It has to do with life situation. There's a death in your family of somebody dear, that's not very comfortable, or you break up with a boyfriend or a husband or whatever. Those are not comfortable situations, but being comfortable with what is the wise way to go. So that, yes, allow yourself to be comfortable with the uncomfortable in situation you cannot change. That is wisdom. But on the yoga mat, half the time people have aches and pains because they're misusing their body. Because if they challenge their body as a whole, they wouldn't feel pain. They would sweat, or they would feel that they're really working out, but they wouldn't be feeling pain of any kind, not even strain. So, and on that, to me, strain is a precursor to pain. So I think I said that in another podcast, but it's worth repeating that, yes, people already know that pain, no pain, no gain is maybe not as valid as people used to think, that it came from a patriarchal society in India. But now people still think that no strain, no gain. If they don't strain, they feel like they're not working enough. And unfortunately, that's just a watered down version of no pain, no gain. If you strain, you will find out that you're hurting yourself in the moment or later on. So I wanted to.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Too. I think also is what you're also referring to is the concept of, so being comfortable with the uncomfortable. Why provoke the uncomfortable when you don't necessarily have to?
Exactly.
Right? Yeah,
exactly. I mean, it's hard enough to choose to challenge yourself as a whole, and if you're in a position that's challenging for everybody part together, that's challenging enough, and you do have to use you're challenging yourself and you feel it. But doing it in a way that makes one body part scream, that is when you get in trouble.
Yeah.
Whether it's your shoulders, your wrist, your knees, your anything. If one body part is yelling out loud, you are doing something that's hurting the whole.
Yes, so actually that's another good tip. I know we mentioned that in the previous podcast, but indeed, if there's one part of your body that is screaming, that's an indication you're not using your whole body intelligence. And the other indication that you mentioned earlier is that if there's no room for more releasing, you're probably overdoing it. I think those are the two good points that we can recap on. And then we also talked about the concept of inhibition, making a conscious choice of not tensing anywhere. And we also brought up the idea of tensing doesn't necessarily mean strengthening. So I think those are really, 3 to 4 cool things that we're leaving our listeners with today.
Yeah, and I want also to add that when we choose not to tense, the body knows the body knows that tensing and strengthening are different. So the body is not going to turn to mush when you say I choose not to tense. It will still use necessary muscle tension.
Yeah.
It knows how to let go of unnecessary muscle tension. That's another distinction I make.
That's a very important
that people
one.
do not really make that distinction yet.
Yeah. So. No, absolutely. So, well, wonderful, Cecile. I think this is it for today. So your website is CecileRaynor.com.
Yes.
My website is monakelly.net, and I'll put all the information in the podcast description as well. So you guys can check it out. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Bye.